Girl, 18. Waves at cop every day. Then he decides to check the house. Every day on Officer Sebastian's route, he sees the same girl waving at him through her window. So when one day this is not the case anymore, he just knows that something has gone wrong and breaks every rule in the book in order to check it out. When he eventually manages to make his way into her room, he finally gets the answers he was looking for. But now he suddenly wasn't so sure anymore if he even wanted them. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell. Let's proceed with the video. When Sebastian gets the door slammed in his face, he knows that something is not right. He doesn't care anymore if this costs him his good standing with the bureau. He is ready to go out on a limb and calls for backup to come and search the house. Minutes later, he and 10 other officers forcefully make their way into the house, putting the man that first opened the door in handcuffs. Sebastian himself immediately runs upstairs to the room from where the girl was always waving from. He has to know what happened to her. When he opens the door, he can barely believe what he sees. Now he understands why she was not waving at him anymore that day. But what had happened to the girl? Why was Sebastian so sure that something was not right and would be proven to be correct? Sebastian has been on the force for the better part of 2 decades. He's dedicated to his job, respected by his peers, and has good relations with the locals. Many have called him a hero, and his actions have given him quite the resume. Little did he know he was about to add to that resume. Sebastian has worked hard on the force. He's been on dangerous assignments, but he's left most of that behind now. He's gotten older and has too many responsibilities now. He's not as ambitious as he was when he was younger. He might have been done with the danger, but the danger wasn't done with him. He's quite proud to be a cop. Sebastian has a wife now and 2 children that he loves very much. He left dangerous assignments because he couldn't imagine leaving his children without a father. Unfortunately, being a police officer does mean putting your life in danger no matter when and where it shows up. Now that Sebastian has moved on from being a street cop, he works behind a desk. He doesn't mind doing paperwork. He also enjoyed going on rides with rookies, just to teach them a thing or two. Along the route that the rookies would take, he'd gotten to know most of the people. Some would grow very special to him. Some of the people on the routes would talk with him, and others acknowledged that they saw him. A lot of them were kind shop owners, and further down the route, homeowners. They didn't mind having the police patrolling around, and it made them feel safe, especially with friendly Sebastian on the route. There was a bigger house on the corner of one street that they passed on the route. It was one of the few houses that Sebastian had no idea who the owners were. There was never anybody outside, and he almost thought it was abandoned. Except there was one thing to show someone was home. Every day that Sebastian would take the rookie route, he'd be driven past this house, and every time there was a young girl standing in the window on the 2nd floor waving to him. Always the same girl, always the same window. It never changed, and she never failed to show up when he came around. Sebastian secretly hoped that one day he'd be able to meet her. After all, they always waved to each other, and he was curious about her. He hoped that maybe she'd come outside when he drove by and he could get to know her, and maybe her parents too. He wanted to be sure she was doing all right. But that would never happen. After one day of driving along the rookie route and waving at the girl, Sebastian became curious. He was done with not having answers. So he did what any good cop would do, and he started to do some investigation. Little did he know what he would find would change his life forever. Sebastian started with the police database. It held the answers to pretty much everything in their town. It could look up the house, the owners, the neighbors, the history, everything. It wasn't surprising that he would start here, and he was lucky he worked behind a desk and had more access to it. After a search of the address in the database, he found out that the house had been purchased almost 50 years ago. The owner of the house had died 25 years ago and had left the house to one of her children, a son. There was nothing about a little girl or why she was there. So what next? Sebastian went to the database again and looked up the son. He found his name and some basic information, but nothing truly helpful. He was stumped. Could it be the son's daughter who he saw waving in the window? Or was she someone else? Maybe she lived there alone? Sebastian had too many questions and not enough answers. He checked the man again but came up with the same information. Doing a quick internet search, he found out that the man had never been in contact with the law, hadn't made any government requests, and he had no social media presence. He was off the grid. But that still didn't explain the girl. Searching the internet through and through, Sebastian couldn't find anywhere where it said this man had a daughter or even a kid at all. If she was his kid, the man didn't have her registered anywhere, not even a school, so either she was his daughter or something else entirely was going on. Sebastian wasn't done looking for answers. He couldn't give up. Now that he was curious, he was also concerned. If the girl wasn't registered for school, that could be counted as criminal. If she wasn't registered as his daughter, that could definitely be criminal. There were too many options leading to danger. Unfortunately, Sebastian didn't know where to look for answers next. He didn't have any probable cause to enter the house or even go to ask questions. Technically, the man had done nothing wrong. Sebastian couldn't prove she was in school, but she might be registered under a different name. But still, she waved at him every day without fail, and, with no probable cause, Sebastian really couldn't do anything but go about his normal life. He was sure as long as the girl was waving to him, she was fine. He still went on rides with rookies and he still waved to her, just as normal. But then something happened that he didn't expect at all. It had been a day like any other. Sebastian was on the rookie route. His rookie was nervous being on the route for the first time, and Sebastian was doing the best he could to keep him calm and collected. After all, it was only a practice drive and nothing ever happened on this route. Sebastian looked out the window and greeted all the familiar faces that he usually saw on this route. A lot of people were out and it put him in a fairly good mood. This would be changed as they passed the big house on the corner when Sebastian noticed something amiss. Scanning the house for the window, he looked up expecting to see the girl, but she wasn't there. There wasn't anybody that he could see there. This had never happened before. She'd always been there, every day, without fail. Something was off about the whole situation and he was gonna figure it out. He noticed right away that a car was still in the driveway. It was likely that somebody was home. After all, the little girl wouldn't drive off on her own. She was probably still in the house along with whoever could drive the car. So what should he do? Ring the doorbell? Why did everything feel wrong? In any other situation, Sebastian wouldn't be so concerned. It wasn't a big thing. So a girl isn't waving at you from her window. She could be in the bathroom or taking a nap or out for a walk even. But deep down, Sebastian knew that something wasn't right and he was going to do something about it. He told the rookie cop to stop the car and wait for him while he went to check out the house. He didn't feel the need to tell the rookie why, only that he had to. This was completely against protocol and he knew he'd have to explain it all later, but he didn't care at this point. He needed answers. Walking up to the door, Sebastian rang the doorbell. Nobody answered. He tried the bell again and then knocked hard on the door. Finally, someone answered, but it wasn't who he expected to see at all. This was all very wrong and now he was more than suspicious. His suspicions would turn out to be right. Sebastian had been able to get a hold of some pictures of the man who supposedly owned this house. The man who opened the door looked nothing like him. He was wearing a suit and he glared hard at Sebastian. He was angry, but Sebastian wasn't leaving without answers. He was going to know if that girl was okay. Sebastian wasn't sure what to do next. He didn't have a warrant to search the home, and he knew that he'd never be able to convince his superiors to listen without concrete proof that someone was in danger. All he had was his gut feeling that something wasn't right. Plus, waiting for a warrant would take too long. Sebastian was right there, and he had to act quickly. But it was a gamble. If he followed his heart and took action, it could cost him his job. The thought was enough to make him hesitate for just a moment. Was it worth it? But before he could even get back into his car to leave, he made up his mind. He reached over, grabbed the radio, and called for backup from everyone he trusted in the area. It wasn't an official call, but Sebastian knew that his fellow officers would support him. They were going into that house no matter what. Sebastian and the rookie drove around the corner and parked on a side street. They wanted to meet the other officers there to avoid suspicion or making a scene. Sebastian worried that maybe he was jeopardizing the rookie's career and setting a bad example for a new officer. The young officer's response shocked him. The rookie insisted that he wanted to be involved with the plan. He trusted Sebastian's instincts and promised to be the lookout to make sure no one left the house while Sebastian explained the situation to the other officers. Within 15 minutes, they were all assembled and getting ready to storm the house. Some of Sebastian's friends were a little hesitant to so blatantly break the rules and enter the house without a warrant. Sebastian swore that there was someone in distress and there wouldn't be time to get one. He knew that he was putting his job and his reputation on the line. With a deep breath, he started leading the group forward. The officers got into formation at the end of the street where they were still out of view of the house. Everyone understood the plan, but Sebastian was nervous that maybe he was missing some important detail. But there was no turning back. On his signal, they rushed the property and forced their way in through the front door. The first person they saw was the man in the suit who had opened the door earlier. One of the officers put him in cuffs while the others spread throughout the other rooms. There was one other person there, a well-dressed man in expensive clothes. But so far, there was no sign of the girl. While the officers interrogated the men about what they'd been doing, Sebastian rushed upstairs to see if he could locate the girl's room. He knew which window belonged to her, so it didn't take him long to find it. When he turned the handle, it was unlocked. Slowly, he pushed open the door. Sebastian stepped inside the room and was immediately taken aback by what he found. It took him a moment to collect his thoughts and calm himself. He looked over his shoulder, checking again that he was in the right place. No wonder the girl hadn't been smiling and waving from her window. The room was bare. There wasn't a single sign that anyone had lived there in ages. The only unusual part is that it was so clean that Sebastian couldn't find a single speck of dirt or dust. What had happened there? Frantically, Sebastian searched the other rooms, hoping to find a clue. In every room, Sebastian found the same scenario. It was emptier than a house for sale, with not even a picture hanging on the wall. The sight of the vacant rooms turned his stomach. Confused, Sebastian headed back downstairs to see if the two men had given up any information about the girl. But when Sebastian cleared the landing on the ground floor, he saw that the men were no longer in handcuffs. Instead, his friends were apologizing to them. They almost looked embarrassed. Sebastian stepped forward, unsure how to feel about the situation. What the hell was going on? One of the men stepped forward and slid his hand into his pocket. Sebastian tensed, wondering what the man was doing. None of the other officers seemed concerned in the slightest. The man pulled an object out of his jacket and held it up for Sebastian to see. The color drained out of Sebastian's face. The well-dressed man in the suit was holding up an FBI badge. Sebastian knew that he was likely in serious trouble, but he couldn't stop himself from asking questions about why the men were there in the first place. The FBI, it turned out, had a few questions for Sebastian as well. The FBI agents had heard about Sebastian's justification to enter the house from the other officers. They wanted to know what had made him suspicious in the first place. The agents respected his willingness to trust his gut and even put his career on the line to help someone in danger. Because of that, they decided to tell Sebastian the truth. The FBI agents asked the other officers to give them some privacy. When they were alone with Sebastian, they explained that they weren't there for the girl. Instead, they had their sights set on her father. It turned out that there was far more to the family than what met the eye. The man in question had been placed in witness protection for his safety. So many people were searching for him that he hardly ever left the house. The same applied to his daughter, who often stayed upstairs and watched the neighborhood from her window. But recently, their routines drastically changed. While checking up on the man, the FBI noticed that the girl was frequently staring out the window. It was just a small detail, but several of the man's former associates had been spotted in the general area. The sight of the man's daughter could have been enough for them to figure out their location. So, the FBI took drastic action. They relocated the man and his daughter to an entirely new location. In the meantime, the FBI had sent a team to ensure nothing identifying had been left behind at their old home. That's why the men were there. Sebastian was stunned by the truth, but there were some things about the girl he doubted he'd ever know. Sebastian wasn't surprised that the FBI agents were vague. They didn't mention why the man was in witness protection. However, Sebastian knew that the man must have been an important witness to have earned that much attention from the FBI. With a sigh, he finally worked up the courage to ask the question that had been haunting him for the past hour. Sebastian asked what the FBI agents were going to do about the raid on the house. The agents agreed not to report the incident as long as Sebastian and his colleagues stayed quiet about everything they discovered at the property. Sebastian also promised to alert them if he noticed anything unusual by the property, but he knew that he would never see the girl or her father again. What did you think of this story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video and subscribe. See you next time.